Media Network proudly presents a weekly exploration of various spiritual practices with renowned spiritual authors, coaches, teachers, and Dr. Tracy Brown, RScP.
And now, here's Tracy.
Hey everybody, Tracy Brown here. I'm so glad you joined me for this episode of poetry, prayers, and spiritual practices. And you already know, I love talking about and diving into what's going on in the minds of poets and how do we use prayer more effectively and what other spiritual practices help us grow. And this week, I am going to have a lovely conversation with Kristin Guerrero, who you are seeing on your screen, and we're waving at each other. Kristin and I met participating together in a process called Poetry Chapel. You know, you go to chapel for sanctuary and for spiritual growth, and we did that growing together, writing poetry. And she is another one of the authors in the Bouquet of Stars, a book that came out of our Poetry Chapel experience. And I want to tell you a little bit about Kristin. If you don't have the book, every one of us has a bio in the book, and I'm going to share hers. Kristin is an architect, and so she begins her intro or bio with, "These days, when I am not working on an architectural deadline or hosting creative arts and energy healing workshops, I am writing poetry. I have always loved the magic of words and appreciated the sacred resonance of poems. My poems are largely inspired by the nature of my native upstate New York, where I live with my husband and 2 children, and by the spiritual lessons I have received over the years from my teachers. Thanks to all of them, especially to Yurik, Kieran, Katie, Master Isha, Master Derek O'Neill, and Sri Satya Sai Baba. I'm so honored to have been a part of this supportive and beautiful poetry collective. I found this group of inspired poets through synchronicities I will never be able to explain, even though we're going to ask her to. I allowed myself to become a poet through Poetry Chapel, and I am grateful to this group and to Shalane Harkin and David Tenson for their encouragement. To have my voice imprinted on these pages with the beautiful chorus of this collective is an amazing dream realized. And I want to encourage you all. You can find Kristin's poems on most social media platforms at Kristin Guerrero Poetry. And obviously, we will put the link where you can get it if you are watching while you are mobile. So, Kristin, I love reading the bio. I love having you here. Is there anything you wanted to add that people should know about you?
Poetry right now for me has been like the best way to express a lot of like themes of spiritual lessons and just like experiences and simple like truths that kind of like come out. And it's just been such a blessing. And like this experience working with this group has been like just liberating in terms of like heart opening. You know? So I just can't say enough about what an awesome experience it's been. So yeah, I'm excited to be here to talk about it.
So fans of the show or people who are becoming fans of the show definitely are getting a deep dive into the Bouquet of Stars book and haven't talked very much about the process. So because you mentioned both Shalane and David in your bio, maybe we should just take 2 or 3 minutes and talk about what was the Poetry Chapel experience like for each of us, and you know, who are these people, Shalane Harkin and David Tenson?
They're angels on the earth right now for me, for me, because they put this group together. It's just like such a special experience. I think Poetry Chapel was kind of David Tenson's group that he put together. I think this is the third installment of it. And what an awesome idea, like just to, get some poets together that want to be published, who have desire to kind of like speak their truth through poetry and put them together and just have them meet and like share ideas and share like wonderful works of art and, put it in a book. And like, it was just been such a special experience. Like, I can't say enough about it.
Yeah, and people are familiar with the idea, many people are familiar with the idea of a mastermind about life goals in general, or career changes, or even deepening spiritually. And it's not exactly like a mastermind, but it's similar to that idea where a group of people are committed to come together, as you described, and share poetry, write poetry, give feedback on each other's poetry, and then choose poems to go into a book together, not knowing. And I think for me, that was one of the things, like when we started, we made this commitment and we didn't know each other.
Yeah, we didn't at all.
And we didn't know that, we would fall in love with each other's poems and the experience. So, and then to be in a book with an established poet,
Yeah.
Shalane Harkin, also, and to work every week, right? That also encouraged, for me, I'll speak for myself, it encouraged me to observe, a dozen different ways to approach a poem or a prompt or a theme based on our own experiences, and to see how she does that, and, and to be supportive, right?
Yeah.
For her to be supportive of us and for us to be supportive of her. It's really great.
Yeah, and I think she's just like such a beautiful soul, and her poetry is just so inspired from this mystical place. And I think that we all kind of caught on to that energy, because our poems, like while they were so different, they still had that thread of just, it was called Poetry Chapel, so but a thread of just that sacred, beautiful divine energy through it. I think that's why we fell in love with each other. But it was such a like an amazing group of people. Like, I believe everyone is put together for a reason, and this poem was, this group was divinely kind of like, brought together, I think. But like, it was just so incredible that so many people, got together to support each other, and in such a like divinely inspired way, I think.
So in your bio, you have the phrase hosting creative arts / energy healing workshops.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more.
Well, I've had this business called Creative Wisdom Workshop for a long time. And during COVID, I did a lot more workshops with that kind of married specifically painting and meditation. So we would do a meditation together, and people would, after the meditation, take their paints and, paint a picture. And then there would be a period of kind of talking about our creations and what came up and themes for kind of doing deep heart work, and I think art, because, meditation is so pictorial, the art kind of followed that. And then, like talking about kind of what comes up from the subconscious is really important as well. So that's work I love to do. I haven't really been hosting them recently. I'm working on poetry right now, but, it's kind of, it's all from the same, source in a way. But poetry does something similar. It brings up themes, like, I think you latch onto a poet because there's everyone loves a different fragrance, right? There's different flowers, different fragrances that kind of come up that elicit certain responses from you. And I think when that happens, there's some kind of connection that you have with that poet or with that poem for, self-reflection. If something's coming up for you, it means that there's something there that needs, maybe looking at, writing about, thinking about, talking about. And I think that's what there's such a beautiful connection with poetry and spirituality. And I think in this book, there are like, how many hundreds of opportunities for you to kind of look at a poem and, what comes out of you, what, what's important to you, what what's speaking to you at the moment that needs maybe attention. I don't know. It's just such a beautiful vehicle,
I love that I know synergy is not the right word, but I love the image that came to my mind when you were describing like doing a meditation and then painting from that and exploring what it means, because it may look one way and I may not understand what the meaning is. And for me, then seeing, wow, the same thing happens. Like when you share a poem that came from some spiritually deep place within you, I may make up a story about what it means to me that has nothing to do with what you were thinking.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Because it's touching the soul.
Mhm.
It's coming from the soul, and I'm receiving it with my soul. Wow. So I would love to hear a Kristin Guerrero poem.
Okay.
Are you willing to read one?
Sure. I'll share one that I haven't put in the book. You can find it at Kristin Guerrero Poetry. There's other poems that I have on my Facebook page. Specifically, I'm posting on Facebook, but yeah, I'm getting Instagram to work, other platforms and things like that. But yeah, this one I think I wrote it during the chapel, but I didn't put it in the book. Just I felt like the other ones went together. But anyway, so I'll read this one. This one is called Oak Body. Sitting on the feet of the old oak, rutted trunk, an extension of my own spine. Wisdom flowing a woody neural network from waxy receptors on knurled fingers, sending divine secrets below to stringy toes. Trying to tap in as a sacred spile, my body as a bucket beneath, anticipating Amrita. But my ignorant mind would not let go the fear that a spider might crawl across my face.
Wow. So one of the things that I love, which I kind of forgot because we haven't been in the poetry chapel experience for a while now, and I just kind of forgot that your poetry has a habit or a pattern of giving such, the way you describe things gives such a strong visual image. Like I can see it. So my eyes were closed as I was listening to you, but I could see it versus just think about it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, thank you. That's awesome. That's like just beautiful feedback, honestly.
Yeah, and I forgot that until I'm listening to you read, and it's like, oh yeah, your poetry, the way that you use language for me gives me, I can actually see an image. So is there a story behind that poem?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's kind of just like on the surface level, there's a big oak tree in our front yard and it's a gorgeous thing. And there's just such a beautiful energy about that tree. I love it. It's huge and it's like been there for a very long time, longer than, probably I've been alive. I don't know. I'm not an arborist, so I don't really know how old the tree is, but you sit with your back against it. There's some kind of like, it's like you're attached to like this big antenna or something, like there's so much going on in that thing. And I remember sitting there trying to meditate, but like, I just kept like pulling myself out of meditation because I was like, like feeling like, oh, look, the spider's there, or so, and it's being so human. I mean, it's this like divine experience of like, trying to tap into this like gorgeous piece of nature that, is like, if you just stop to be a part of it, there's so much like wisdom it can give you, right? But like, the ignorant human part of you is like, I'm afraid of a bug, and there was just that beautiful juxtaposition of like the human experience and this like divine experience that I thought was just so interesting to write about. So that's where this poem came from.
Yeah, and different from, writing about it like in narrative paragraph form.
Mhm.
Like I could image it, and then for you to be like that last line and the spider, I felt myself like,
Yeah,
well,
come
like,
out
oh
of it,
no,
right?
right. And so to experience it, I think that's what so many of us, when we are writing poetry, we're not preaching to people, right? We're trying to make that soul connection of the experience of being alive and what it really feels like, not what you intellectually know it to be.
Yeah. And so many holy books are written in poetry, you know, for that purpose. Like, I think you're supposed to get into them and take out what is resonating for you, and not so much to be preached to in the pulpit and Sunday. And I go to church. I'm not saying, you know, church is a beautiful place, but there are people that will preach it, and then there's some kind of experience that you get looking at the Upanishads, looking at the Bible, looking, you know, at, about like lessons that are important for your growth that you can pick out of that, you know. And I think that's the important spiritual journey. It's like you're here to learn things for you, and you'll get those lessons if you open yourself up to them, right? And I don't want to preach anything to you, but if you look at something in my poetry and you see, oh, that, you know, I respond to that, then that means something for you, and that's a beautiful connection. Yeah.
It's one of what you describe as one of the reasons I wanted to do this program on the New Thought Media Network, because the spiritual teaching that can come without it being formally taught or formally preached, the spiritual opening and deepening that can come from poetry that marries the divine and the human is so powerful. And I know I've been blessed, you know, thousands of times in my life from reading poetry, and all of a sudden it clicks like, oh, that's what that spiritual principle is about, or that's an example of spiritual principle in action. And so, yeah, I think you've got something there. Like what resonates with you has a gift for you.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's so much more powerful when you get it yourself, you know. You have that like aha moment, or you have that thing that tugs at your heart. That's like so powerful, you know. It's not really, I mean, people can give you tools and things like that to get there. You know, they're beautiful spiritual teachers, and I've had gorgeous spiritual teachers in my life, but just, you know, getting it for yourself is like, oh, it's like that, you know.
Right. And we own it more when we
Yeah.
have the experience of it.
Yeah, for
Or
sure.
we validate it, and we validate ourselves, I think. I'm just thinking about myself, that yeah, it's a validation that either I really do have a purpose, or I really am connected to the divine nature of life itself. You know, I don't know. It's almost I think one of the things that was a little scary for me, even in deciding to have such a big focus on poetry in this show, was how do you talk about poetry? It's like when it's really deep, it just gets you, and then what else is there to say?
But it's presenting it to people who otherwise wouldn't have an opportunity to get it, you know, or to maybe a book that someone, you know, missed, and you're bringing these beautiful gems for them to, you know, look at. And yeah, talking about it from all different perspectives, that helps, you know, people, you know, gain an insight into things that they otherwise wouldn't. So I think it's amazing. I think it's an amazing marriage, and like, just, I hope the show is just so successful for you, because I know like you have something beautiful there, you know. So
Yeah, well, if nothing else, I get to feature some of my favorite poems and poets, and, you know, pray and do prayer and introduce different versions of prayer, because there's so many different ways to pray. And, you know, to see that and to expose that, and for me to experience it, So I can be selfish and say, well, at least I'll enjoy it. I enjoy doing the show, and if no one else does, or okay, well, that's all right. I got something out of it. So where do you see your poetry taking you, or poetry taking you over the next, year or two? Because you're the one who said in your bio that it's like the Poetry Chapel experience and this being published is like, oh, now I'm a poet. It's turned me into a poet.
Yeah, I
What
think
does that
that.
mean?
I mean, I think like it's so new for me now to like have been a part of this experience, and kind of unleashing that like poetry as a kind of like as a medium, because I haven't ever used it very much before, except for like in my journals and things like that. So I just want to like keep writing about things that light me up, or that just like interest me, or that I think that it could be a collective experience somewhere in the poetry. And I'll continue to write and see what happens with it. I'd love to eventually put it all in my own book at some stage. Right now I don't have enough poetry to do that, but I hope one day to have that. And I'm kind of like writing more and more now. So yeah, I mean, I want it to always be a medium that I can kind of use to kind of express myself, and hopefully other people, if they come across my poetry, feel like they have some kind of experience with it, and that's all I hope for right now. I don't have any grand plans, but we'll see what happens, from this.
Well, you and I both know that, poetry, you can't write, I don't think you can write poetry with an intent
No, yeah.
to like be famous. Like I want to be poet laureate of the United States
Right.
in 4 years.
Yeah, it doesn't
And
happen.
then, I think that would affect your writing, because then you're not writing from the inside out.
Yeah.
You're writing things that you think people will like and
Right.
talk about. And
Yeah.
so
That's like an inauthenticity there that I don't think I think it would come straight through the poetry. I don't think anyone would be interested in it, to be honest with you. But yeah.
So I'm curious, since you have not written or published a lot of poetry before these last few months, I'm curious what people who have known you for a while. So you have this whole group of people who know you as a professional, as an architect,
Yeah.
And then you have this group of people who know you from the spiritual work and the energy healing work. And now you're building this persona of Kristin the poet. So how are people who know you from other, not to say husband,
Yeah, it's completely different.
children, family members, what's the reaction to Kristin the poet?
Yeah, I haven't really, it is like living a double life in a lot of ways. Like because I haven't shared it to this level before. I haven't really shared it to this degree before with like even my husband. Like I don't think he even realized that I wrote poetry until I told him I was doing this crazy like poetry chapel thing. And he said, okay, like, well, so yeah, in a lot of ways it is like, complete departure from what I'm doing, but in some ways it ties together so much, so I think some people are surprised that I was even like, my friends were like, oh, I didn't realize you were writing poetry when I started to kind of publish the book. And I think it's just like, a different side of myself that I guess, people, I'm now like coming out of the poetry closet, trying to, just share myself in a different way. I'm usually pretty quiet too. Like I'm not like one to really like be the loudest person in the room. And I think for me, poetry is kind of like a way of expressing myself that kind of fits with my personality. So I think I don't know, all the people are surprised. I don't think they they're completely shocked. But yeah, I don't think my mom has even read a poem of mine yet. I'll give her the book for Christmas. I'll see what happens. My sister, like, relatives that are interested in poetry, I don't think that they have known that I've been writing it. So I think we'll see as as the book, comes out and gets shared more and more. We'll see what feedback is. But I think it ties together. Like, there's an energy in poetry. I love energy healing. There's a creative aspect of it, and I've loved painting, and architecture is right and left sides of the brain, and I think that this is that as well. So it's sort of, it's all from the same source. But yeah, I don't. We'll see who reacts however they react. But it's been interesting to see. Oh, I didn't realize. So.
Yeah, I think I probably, if I'm completely honest, I didn't think of this in advance, but I think the reason that question even came to my mind is because sometimes I get strange looks and questions from people who know me from one part of my life, but not another. So, right, people who know me from my business and see me a certain way are sometimes surprised and sometimes confused if they hear about me or see something posted that is, spiritually deepening, or I'm speaking at a religious or spiritual conference, and then then they find out, what, you write poetry? Well, wait, what? And they're going, huh?
Yeah,
and it all works together because I'm not confused.
Yeah.
Right, it's all a part of me expressing, or spirit expressing through me and as me, and it just seems a natural part of who I am, that I do these things, including roller skating, which is
that was amazing that I found that out. That was incredible. But like,
right, which is the one that really makes people go, huh? Like, roller skate? Aren't you too old for that? Like, no, I'm not. So I think that's probably it. From the inside, it made me ask you that question, because I hadn't really thought about it before. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see where you go over the next 12 to 24 months with your poetry.
We'll keep in touch and we'll see. It's a wild ride that I'm open to taking and see what happens, but it's been a blessing. It's been a really big blessing for me too.
Well, I really appreciate you spending a little time with me. I'm so happy to see you again.
Yeah,
Since we're not meeting every week anymore, and as we are in the early part of 2023, it's just exciting to keep the connection alive and to be able to be reminded of your poetry and what it means to you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me to talk about it. It's like one of my favorite things to talk about now. So I appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Kristin. And hey, everybody, just make sure that you stay connected with New Thought Media Network and look for updates. And I will see you next Tuesday at noon Mountain Time. Bye for now.
Join us again next week, or watch on demand at www.ntmedia.org or youtube.com/New Thought Media Network. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring. Learn more at www.ntmedia.org.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network, come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings.